and Edinburgh by between 20 and 30 miles roughly, so you could draw a triangle to connect up the three places. Here we go then with the senior men's race, and possibly the muddiest this surface will get.
And this senior woman's about to get caught up in all of the action as they start the first of 4 laps here in Kings Park in Stirling. Again, it's those 8 kilometres, the mixture of these sharp corners, the muds, and some of the hills as they get on towards the golf course part. Now, Andy Butchart, Scottish national record holder for the 3,000 and 5,000 metres, is, I'd say, the big favourite for today's race. Who could be challenging him, though?
Well, there's a strong England team too, and we mustn't write that as a result already. Certainly Adam Hickey, fantastic cross-country record. He has won the cross challenge overall in the past in 2015. The firefighter from Southend, Jack Gray, had a fantastic battle with Hickey at the England 10,000 metre championships, where we were last June in Walthamstow in North London. On that occasion it was Hickey that just came out on top after a titanic duel. And you've also got Ellis Cross, who has a great background, and we've seen at British University's level he's won the 5,000 metres twice, and I wonder whether he, with the sort of the chance to benefit from the experiences of his senior teammates, could join that strong group. We've got the tall figure of Ben Greenwood to the left of shot in the Scotland vest, and a couple of the Welshmen starting strongly as well. Yeah,
so we've got James Hunt, number 13 there, and he's alongside Chris Jones, the athlete. He's from Swansea but lives in Dundee. He's made his home in Scotland for a good many years. Chris Jones, the bronze medalist in European sprint orienteering from the summer of 2018, has been racing a lot of 5,000 metres, 10,000 metres in various times. And he was actually the 3rd Brit at the European cross-country championships in Lisbon in 22nd place. And securing the team gold there, and he's actually the only one from last year's UK v USA v Europe elite race here to return to Stirling Park. So yeah, he's experienced on this, and it's actually very unusual to see him hitting the front. He's normally someone who kind of likes to stay reasonably near the back and then work his way up, build his way up as he goes through a race. So I'm actually very, very surprised to see that he's hit the front here. But maybe this is a conversation he had with his teammate James Hunt, also from Wales, in the red strip, to try and take it to all of the Scots. But now maybe an attack forming as they go up the top of the hill here, maybe an injection of pace.
Yeah, certainly from Butchart, as you talked about those Scots, because a moment ago the top Scot was Jamie Crowe, who's sort of on the left of picture with Butchart on the right. Now really building up as the course momentarily becomes flat again. So this 8-kilometre race in total, consisting of 4 long laps. First of all around the rather flat playing field section, and then on to the back where the golf course is, and away from most of the spectators and where they're gathered, and where it becomes downhill and then uphill, and then real balance, coordination and care is needed.
So numbers 1 and 2, Andrew Butchart, Jamie Crowe, those two in amongst the Welsh athletes, trying to inject some pace at the very start of this race.
Yeah, so number 13, that's James Hunt, and then, as you said, Chris Jones, 14. So Butchart in the thick of the action thus far, as you expected.
James Hunt, 10th overall in the cross challenge standings, took a 7th place in Cardiff. So had some good results to carry through from this cross-challenge series. Reminder, this is the 4th race of 5 in that series. We've already had Liverpool, Milton Keynes and Cardiff. We're here to stay today in Stirling, and then we've also got the final, which is going to be in Loughborough, which also counts as the Inter-Counties Cross-Country Championships.
Yeah, so looking to set things up nicely for that final and try and improve on your results thus far. Interestingly, if you don't improve on your overall scores and you have raced in 2 already prior to today, then all you'll do is you will get the bonus points, and obviously you'll get the finishing position and your time, but in terms of the cross challenge format and how that's concerned, you will get the 3 points, as it were, for finishing in the top 50. So that's why the standings are as they are. So for example, if you finished first twice, you would get 50 points plus 3 for each of those, so that's 106, 53 plus 53. And if you finish second, then you would just get your bonus points, just a couple more.
It is quite confusing. We've taken a while for us to try and figure it out, to be honest. So we're trying to explain it the best way for you. It is quite complicated, but still those 2 Welsh athletes leading the way, those 2 red shirts, James Hunt and Chris Jones. And this really does seem to me to be a tactical decision from the Welsh team.
Once again, though, it is good to see a good hard battle out front, just as we had in the senior women's race, and whereas earlier on there were sort of displays of individual quality that really seemed to pay off early in the race, not to give those behind you a sniff of catching up. But I'm sure Andy Butchert will want to come in this one and really be competitive and win if he can. He certainly has a challenge on his hands here.
So that's a top group of 5, and it looks like in 5th place is Adam Hickey, the England athlete. As we said earlier, the England champion over 10,000 metres, and 5th place in the cross challenge standing. So that group of 5, here we can see them, Jones and Hunt, Crow and Butchart and Hickey in that group of 5, and they've really made an impression. Looks like Hickey maybe is the only one struggling off the back of that, but the 4 in front really seeming to be very, very strong, with Andy Butchart just kind of sitting in there at the moment, just letting the Welsh athletes take the pace and make those decisions about how fast they want to go and how they want to pace that. But this is a really clear group now of these 5 athletes, and I'd expect the top 3 to come from this group.
Andy Butchert, of course, an Olympic finalist. He has such a beautiful free style that isn't interrupted by all this mud and all this obstacle of the terrain and the challenge that presents itself because of the weather conditions that we've had, particularly this morning. I know they're a little better now, but he is really great to watch, particularly when he really gets up to speed. And we know the quality that he has, so I'm sure happy to sit in there for a moment. He could push on if need be. And Adam Hickey as well, the cross-country experience that he has, as he just sort of has a slight wobble there and tries to maintain his balance like Kate Avery, his England colleague, did so well. Interesting to see how those perhaps perceivably less experienced and this sort of stage do in this situation, like Crow and Hunt. And you were talking about the background of Chris Jones as well. Further back from this, well, there seem to be a couple of other Scots at the front of that pack, including Ben Greenwood and Hamish Hickey, so they are both under 23s. But this perhaps the best showing from a Welsh perspective that we've seen so far. We did see at the start of the day an under-11 guest from Cámara beat all of the Scottish primary school children a little earlier on, and then we of course had Bronwyn Owen finishing in 3rd place for the senior women. But these 2 men from Wales battling it out front, and it's up to Butchert now to try and respond. That's the little ever so slight break from the mud before this really difficult piece of terrain.
And actually, it seemed like Butchart was struggling a bit over that section, actually, which was a surprise to me. He's dropping back, not keeping as close to the leaders as I'd think. But then again, at this section, not letting them get a complete gap, not really allowing them to go away. And at this point, maybe it's Adam Hickey at this back of the group that's struggling on that hilly section as we get up towards the top part of the course, towards this playing field, who's maybe dropped off. And I think, as a result of that hill, 5 is now down to 4. 2 Scots and 2 Welsh.
Yeah, quite possibly. Of course, different camera angles, as we said, throughout today's competition do fall short, and certain leads as they appear, but Butchart, it just appeared as though on that section he was gathering his focus again and say, right, okay, I'm dropping back a little bit here, I need to focus, try and summon a bit of energy without using too much of it with a real surge. It's a slight surge that's put him right up to the back there of Hunt, who's now in second place.
So it looks like they're running into the rain, into the wind here, just trying to keep good strength, keep good form into this section. And here it's going to be all about these turns as they snake their way around the course. You've really just got to just get on with it, just power through the muds, and these guys really are experienced at that. And this, I think, that we might be able to see some of the effect of the different kinds of races that they do outside of cross country, the different sports and the different trainings that will go alongside that, maybe with some focusing on more track work, some focusing on more kind of cross country stuff. And I think especially one athlete I can talk about is Chris Jones with his background in orienteering. He's just going completely through forests and everything as a part of that sport that he does, although he's mostly focusing in towns and cities, his orienteering now. So that being able to cope with anything that's out in front of you is a real skill, and that's really what all of these 5 athletes are managing to do at this point.
So you're watching live coverage here, the British Athletics Cross Challenge, incorporating the home country's international and also the Scottish inter-district championships here. It's pretty muddy, but nothing less than these athletes would have expected. In fact, that's hardly muddy at all compared to some of the back sections of the course, compared to some of the cross-country terrains that we've all seen over the years.
And oh, Chris Jones down on that corner. It just doesn't. He took up the inside line there, and now this has put Butchart into the, well, I was going to say into the leading position, but Hunt takes it back out into the lead again. But a fall from Chris Jones there, who was the leader of this race, and now I think Butchart has spied an opportunity to hit the front. It looked like James Hunt was kind of flagging there a little bit. He managed to overtake him before Chris Jones went down, and now Andy Butchart from Scotland has hit the front. The pre-race favourite, arguably. The 2 Welsh athletes took it out first, but you know what, he's not been able to make a gap, to be honest. They're managing at the moment to stay with him.
I think you'd have to say that Chris Jones recovered extremely well, given that slip there on the corner. That could perhaps be a bit of a turning point in this race, but he did manage to get up and get himself back in with a chance of maintaining his place in that leading group, which he's doing for the time being. So Hunt now beginning to drop back a little bit. Butchart from James Hunt, and then Crow now sort of caked in mud, all splattered across their faces. And Jones battling there with Crow.
And this is them out on their 3rd lap of 4, just starting the 3rd lap of 4. So done the first 4 kilometres of the 8-kilometre race. And this point you really see Andy Butchart has decided enough is enough. It's time for him to hit the front and overtake the two Welsh athletes who were setting the pace. Chris Jones seems to be still there in 2nd. And of course Jamie Crow in the 3rd spot. Chris Jones and Jamie Crow both raced at Liverpool. Chris Jones just taking 7th place ahead of Jamie Crow's 8th place. So in recent results we've seen Chris Jones come out, oh, but Butchart's down again. Well, not again, he's down.
It's another faller, yes,
another
you're quite
faller.
right. So, well, we were saying how many of the athletes have grappled so well with the slipperiness of this turf, the way that the water's naturally been quite spread around, following the rain early on by the athletes earlier, and the change of the course going out back where they're more surrounded by the trees, perhaps drying out a lot slower. But suddenly we see 2 fallers in this final race. We wondered whether the senior men would be, you know, strongest and most able to sort of gather themselves and maintain their balance, but it's also when the course is at its muddiest. It's the most amount of athletes that have gone over it already, and that could well be playing a part. But you have to say, once again, Butchart recovering well.
Yeah, both of them have recovered well, and to be honest, I'm surprised we haven't seen more fallers, particularly at the lead of some of the races. And I think really, as you rightly said, this is the last race of today. This is the last of 11 races. It's a huge field for this senior men's race, and it's really churned up the ground. And I think it's also a testament as to just how fast they're going. They're really pushing it around some of these tracks, especially like Andy Butchart's trying to get a gap now of Chris Jones. Chris Jones is trying to get back to Andy Butchart. And they're all really, you know, this is the fastest these courses are going to be run all day. These are the fastest runners who are competing today, so they're really trying to push the boundaries to now. And as they head up the hill, this is towards the end of the golf course section on the 3rd lap out of 4. These two athletes really trying to push each other, but Andy Butchart opening out once he gets onto the flat. Again, maybe trying to, I was thinking Chris Jones was getting back at him, but now maybe Andy Butchart's being able to open that back up again. He's really showing his speed over the flatter sections, I think, of this race.
Yeah, by no means over though, as they come back into this sort of playing field, much flatter section, but we've seen that there are some tricky twists and turns. We did see Chris Jones fall or slip in this section earlier on, and this is still not done yet. So Jones number 14, Butchart now particularly muddy, isn't he? And just perhaps being reeled in here. We wonder just what sort of shape he's in. Jones now really getting a sniff of the man in the navy in front of him. Well, Butchart, he's surely delighted to be back in the Scotland vest and back on home soil. Of course, he missed the Commonwealth Games for Scotland after breaking his foot a couple of years ago, but in an Olympic year, we'll try and qualify for Tokyo once again. Jones here with great experience and from the world of orienteering. He's taken over the Welshman on the Scots backyard. Fantastic stuff from Jones, and you just wonder whether Butchart can respond now.
Yeah, that's got to be really devastating to Butchart, and he's put a lot of effort into getting away from the Welshman on that 3rd lap, in the 2nd and 3rd lap. And actually, this is really decisive. Chris Jones has not just managed to pass Butchart, he's managed to get a gap as well, and that's really, really significant. Butchart was looking absolutely fantastic, but Butchart being so close, living so close to Kings Park, he said he's never actually raced here, and this is quite exciting to see. Chris Jones, who has raced here, he's raced here before. He was part of the UK, USA, Europe match last year. The third counter for the European cross-country championships, earning them the team gold medal in Lisbon last month. And he has managed to overtake the favourite today, Andy Butchart, and maybe he's being a little bit more careful around in the corners. We've seen both Jones and Butchart fall at this point, and the two Scots are back there in 2nd and 3rd, Butchart and Crowe. Yeah,
he's now falling into the crutches. It's Andy Butchart of Crowe, his Scotland colleague, but the Scots looking strong overall. It was that brilliant battle that we saw earlier on. How is this race going to play out between Scotland and Wales in particular? Adam Hickey not featuring quite as strongly as we might have expected, dropping back on the 2nd lap, I think it was. You can see now Crowe in front of Butchart, and there is Adam Hickey. He has in fact managed to produce a fast finish
of the 3rd lap, and overtake the other Welshman. So there is, in the white shirt, is Hickey. So now they go into the final lap of the 4, and so just this one more of this lot to go. So they'll have the flat section again, then they will see the hilly section over the golf course, then back into the more twisty, turny section right at the very, very end. But Chris Jones, number 14, the Welshman, lives though in Dundee, very, very close here to Stirling, has made Scotland his home, is really managing to sort out the rest of this field, and Butchart slipping back. He's slipped back maybe behind Crow now. We'll just get a confirmation as we see some of the other runners, and maybe now this will give Hickey the opportunity to pull up a few more places, to be honest, because Hickey, we know he's raced a lot in the cross challenge circuit this year. 5th place in the current standings, with 4th in Liverpool and 8th in Milton Keynes. In fact, he actually beat Chris Jones in Liverpool. But this terrain seems to be suiting the Welshman.
Yeah, heading for a time of around 25 minutes. You might expect, we'll see. He was around 18:50, I think, when he came through level with that start-finish line, but you never know on this last lap how much he's got left. I don't think that slip took too much out of him, to be honest, and as you said, the Scots could well be falling back into the clutches of England's Adam Hickey, who's just creeping through the trees there behind. So Crow looks to be the first of those Scots. It may well be that Butchart has been overtaken. We'll catch up to that in a moment's time. So out on this golf course section of the course, Christian Jones of Wales, the 28-year-old, the Swansea Harrier, fantastic distance runner, and as you said, with the background in orienteering as well.
He is a world-class orienteer. Bronze medalist at the European Sprint Orienteering Championships in 2018. His big focus this season won't be races like this. His big focus is the World Championships in Sprint Orienteering, which is going to be held this summer in Denmark. He should get a medal, hopefully. If all goes well, he should medal at those. Is a big favourite for a medal there. Really, races like this, training like this over the winter, as he looks behind him and sees where's everybody gone, will give him a huge boost going into those championships in what is his main sport.
Well, we wondered whether that would be a turning point where he just went round that sharp corner and his feet gave way, but perhaps it was the point at which he really had his heart in his mouth and decided to set himself on the final stages, knowing what he had left. And when misfortune would come the way of Andy Butchart just a few moments later, and on this part of the course, Butchart, who I think it's fair to say had worked quite hard to bridge that gap, to manage that gap and have almost a little surge up to the front of those two Welshmen. In the end, perhaps not at his best today, as he would have liked for his Stirling debut on home soil here at Kings Park. But Chris Jones maybe also looking a little bit laboured towards the finish, but as we suggested with earlier big leads, doesn't matter too much at this stage. We think that's the second place athlete Crow, and it's a pretty sizable gap there that we can see regardless of the camera angle. So Jones now into this section where there are more supporters encouraging him towards the finish.
Yeah, maybe laboured, maybe just trying not to slip over too much. He's put a lot of effort into kind of the end of the third lap, into the fourth lap to get that gap. You know, first of all, reel Butchart back in and then get to the beginning of the group, and now really just trying to stay back in there. But I mean, I was surprised that he hit the front at the beginning. Normally he starts fairly steadily towards, you know, at a European Championships, he would maybe start towards the back and then kind of warm up and reel much more people in. So I'm surprised to see that he went out very, very hard at the beginning, and then as they've been able to keep some reserves back to kind of attack and reel Butchart back in, and then to keep it going across this the last few stages of the race.
And we could tell you that it's the Welshman on target to beat the Scottish home hero, but of course Chris Jones lives in Scotland. He's raced here before, albeit it's a slightly different layout here in 2020, but looking very much at home, and you know, no sign behind him, or perhaps there is just a flash through of Crow under pressure from Adam Hickey, who's had a good finish when at one point it looked like he was dropping back a bit, saved a bit of energy for the final lap here.
So Chris Jones leading on this final lap here. Only a few more turns to go. Ran the equal fastest 5-mile time in the UK last year as well. And the Welsh 5K champion. But now rounding the last few corners, you can see he's looking back still to try and find out what was going on. And now this is the last corner. He will make a right-hand turn now and go along parallel to this street, parallel to the houses towards the finish line. So Chris Jones alongside Jamie Hunt managed to set the pace. James Hunt set the pace early on, but Chris Jones here looks behind him. He's had a fantastic race and is able to take the victory ahead of favourite Andy Butchart to win here in Stirling, win the British Athletics Cross Challenge here. A fantastic race from Chris Jones, the Welshman, the only Welsh victory, actually not quite the only Welsh victory. Second place is Jamie Crow, and third place, Adam Hickey has just pipped Andy Butchart. So Hickey into third place, the Englishman, but it is Chris Jones with the victory today on Stirling on this really, really tricky, muddy course. He's managed to come up trumps. This is that's James Hunt into fifth there, I think. And that was the big group of 5 that we saw break away quite early in the race before Hickey dropped off the back and then really paced that well to be able to finish strongly. And some more of the athletes crossing the line now. In fact, I think some of the Scottish and
Lachlan Oates came through as well. But yeah, as you said, quite a big gap following that initial group of 5. And the work that they put in the early stages, similar to the way that the individual younger athletes did earlier on, made quite a bit of difference in the end. But the Scottish Inter-District title includes the top 6 scorers for those regions, and you can also get points all the way back to 50th place as well. So these battles for these positions still counting for quite a lot, as well as the pride of opening up your season with a strong performance in, as you can see there, #MuddyBrilliant conditions being used on social media by British Athletics.
Well, I mean, that really maybe has defined today's set of races all the way through from the under 11s that we had right at 10 o'clock this morning through to the 2 senior races that we've just had now. And I think, you know, those 2 senior races, some of the best that we've seen all morning, with some great competition. And yeah, what do you make of that race, the men's race?
Well, it's extraordinary because we thought, as Andy Butchart perhaps holding back a little bit, and then when he kicks into gear, he'll have that beautiful free running style that we know he's so capable of. And I suppose that would have been the most romantic outcome of this particular race. However, Chris Jones, his grit, his determination, and it's strange how something that you think is a negative consequence, like a sort of slip, can enable you to then refocus. And Kate Avery did it in a similar way, when just as you thought she was going around some really tricky corners, having to take that initiative of being the first on the road. It's a bit like being in the dark at night with the headlights when you're not following someone, and she did incredibly well. Chris Jones, he just seemed to have an incredible final gear in the latter stages, and that classic finish to a cross country where you break out into a smile and your face is littered with specks of mud.